I ditched the big city and relocated to the small town of Salem, Oregon. And since you're watching this video, I think it's pretty safe to assume that you are considering doing the same thing that I did. 5 years ago, my husband and I ditched living in the heart of downtown Portland and decided to pack up everything and relocate 45 minutes south to Salem, Oregon. If you're like most of my other YouTube clients, you've probably come to the same decision that my husband and I did. You are ready to pack your bags, ditch the city, and relocate to Salem, Oregon. So in this video, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly facts about ditching the city for a small town. My name is Clarity Odd, and I'm a local real estate broker here in Salem who specializes in relocations. And just like you, I relocated to Salem, and now I get to make these videos all about this amazing city for you, my future clients. If you want to work with us in the home buying process, go down to the description of this video where you're going to find all of our contact information. Reach out so that we can help you. The first consideration on our list is transportation and getting around Salem, Oregon as it compares to a bigger city. Now, I have lived in cities that are not car dependent, and where I moved from in Portland, it was very, very easy to use different modes of transportation like walking or the streetcar or light rail and just hopping on the bus to get around. I had a car for all of my life in Portland, but it was pretty darn common to leave my car parked in the car parking garage and just forget about it. So when I tell you that Salem is car dependent, it is coming from the perspective of somebody who has lived in a city that was not car dependent. I personally do not mind the fact that Salem is car dependent, and while it would be really nice to have alternative modes of public transportation easily accessible in Salem, I like driving and the traffic in Salem is really not that bad, so it's not a mode of transportation that I mind at all. But if you are coming from a bigger city where you have really easy access to a trolley system or a streetcar or even a subway system, you do need to be mindful that you will be dependent on your car for things like groceries or to head into downtown Salem and generally just getting around Salem. Salem is a small town with under 200,000 residents, but it's not very dense. It's a city that doesn't have skyscrapers downtown. Salem doesn't have a light rail system, and downtown is small enough where you can walk from one side of downtown to the other side of downtown in like 10 minutes flat. So if you're wanting a city that is really big and really dense and has a downtown that is reminiscent of a bigger city, that's not Salem. And that's okay, because most people who find me on YouTube who are relocating to Salem, they are ready to ditch those big city vibes for the smaller town of Salem. So don't worry, you're gonna fit right in if you fall into that category. If you're finding value in this video so far, give it a thumbs up and go down to the comments and tell me why you think Salem, Oregon is a good place to live. We've already covered the fact that you are gonna need to get ready to spend more time in your car driving around Salem, but you are going to be so happy to know that most everything you need in Salem is going to be about 20 minutes away, and the traffic here might, just maybe, will add an extra 5 to 15 minutes to your commute time. The amount of mental liberation that comes from living in a small city that has minimal traffic, it is amazing. I don't have to plan my day anymore around avoiding traffic jams or figuring out which back streets I should be going on to avoid the main commuter streets. I don't have to deal with any of that anymore, and I think when you get to Salem, you're probably going to be very happy to know that everything is just 20 minutes away. If this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything there is to know about Salem, Oregon and its surrounding areas from somebody who relocated here just like you, hit that subscribe button and boop that little bell to ensure that you are notified each week when I put out a new video all about living in Salem. The next reason why you might just want to ditch the big city and plant your tookie down here in Salem, Oregon is because the lower cost of living here in Salem. Now, this is going to be a very, very relative point, but like I mentioned earlier, my clients on YouTube who are coming from bigger cities, they are also generally coming from higher cost of living cities. So moving into Salem, you are going to find that the real estate here in Salem is significantly cheaper than many other cities on the West Coast, tongue twister there, like Portland or Seattle or LA or San Diego. And I'm also going to throw Houston and Dallas on that list of places that are getting more expensive, because I see what y'all pay for houses now. And I think Salem is going to be much more comparable to Texas prices than you realize. Yes, they're going to be more expensive here, the houses in Salem, than in Texas, but you guys are going through a crazy growth spurt and it's becoming more expensive to move to Texas. At the time that this video was filmed, the median sales price for a single family detached home in Salem was at $430,000. That means that for $430,000, you can get a pretty darn average home here in Salem, which is usually a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house around 1,500-ish feet. Now, of course, you are going to have variations in this based upon location. This is just to give you a general understanding about what you can expect when you're purchasing the average home here in Salem. If you're like me and you're coming from a high cost of living city, you are going to be elated by the fact that you can get a bigger and a better house here in Salem compared to so many other popular West Coast cities. Other than the cost of real estate, I do find that the general cost of living and going out and eating and getting groceries, filling up your gas tank, paying utilities, all of those fun adulty things that we got to do now, those are pretty darn similar to a place like Portland. So really, the lower cost of living is going to come down and be most visible when we compare the cost of real estate in Salem to any other place. The next reason why you, my friend, might want to ditch the city for a smaller town feel is because you're just over the big city vibes and the fast pace and the hustle and bustle of whatever city you are currently living in. Salem is slow, and it is laid back when you compare it to a big city. And in my case, that city was Portland. So for example, downtown Salem, it kind of shuts down around like 6 p.m. on the weekdays. And because downtown Salem is more of a destination, downtown becomes very, very quiet and empty after those traditional business hours. There are, of course, bars and restaurants that are still open after 6 p.m., but it's pretty common for those to close around 9 and 10 p.m. And by the time it's like 9 or 10 p.m., it's just basically empty in those places. So if you are wanting a downtown that is cute and quaint and historic and a little bit slower paced, downtown Salem is going to be your ideal small town city living. And I actually had a client recently who described Salem as a big little city, and I think that's the perfect way to describe Salem. It is a city, but it acts more like a small town, but it has ample infrastructure, so you can expect some of those big city amenities. Well, you know, no subway system or anything like that. But Salem has things like a Costco and a hospital, and our downtown is filled with historic buildings that have restaurants and boutiques. And we have a waterfront with an outdoor amphitheater. And so in many ways, Salem feels like the best of both worlds. You get a lot of the amenities of a bigger city, but you just don't have the same problems that bigger cities oftentimes have. And if you're wanting to remember what those big city vibes are like, you just need to drive 45 minutes north to Portland. The next reason why you, my friend, might just want to consider ditching the big city life for a smaller town feel is because you are simply over living in a concrete jungle and you want to have easy access to nature and being outside. And you might even be used to the idea of light pollution and you can't even remember the last time that you looked outside out your window and saw those twinkling little stars at night. Well, I can tell you that Salem does not have that issue. We don't have light pollution, and honestly, the clouds are going to be the thing that obscures your view of the stars more often than not. If one of your main motivations for moving to Salem is based on your desire to reconnect with nature and be surrounded by fresh local produce and have easy access to the forest and hiking and the mountains and the Oregon coast, then Salem's definitely going to be the place for you. Within 30 to 45 minutes, you can be at Silver Falls State Park, and within an hour and a half, you can drive to the Oregon coast, or if you're craving the sun and the desert landscape, you can be at the high desert in Central Oregon within about 2-ish hours. Here in the Willamette Valley, which is where Salem is located, we are so fortunate to be surrounded by so much nature and beauty. The Willamette Valley is home to some amazing vineyards and farms, and there's never going to be a shortage of activities for you to be doing outside. If you have a fur baby like I do, here's my puppy right here named Bud, you are going to be so happy to know that Salem is very dog friendly. You are consistently going to see people walking around with their dogs, and there are plenty of pet shops around town so that you can spoil your fur baby rotten. Just like you, there was a point in time in my life where my husband and I decided that Portland was no longer the place that we wanted to live. We absolutely loved living in downtown Portland, and it's a city that I grew up in. But at the end of the day, we were ready for a slower pace of life and living in a part of Oregon that just better fit our needs and our season of life. We absolutely love the fact that we can go play arcade games downtown at Coin Jam, that we can go knock on our favorite farmer's front door and get local honey, and that things are just generally slower here in Salem than they are in a big city. If you're ready to ditch the big city life for Oregon's best, biggest small town city, you, my friends, are absolutely going to love living in Salem, Oregon. If you enjoyed this video, you are going to want to watch this one next. Bye, friends. If you, my friend, are ready to bitch